Hello and welcome back to the Fighting Talk 2 channel. We are the Fighting Talk 2 team. In Casual Corner, George, how are we doing, my friends?
All good, mate. All good, thank you. Great night last night and looking forward to breaking it down.
What a phenomenal night of fights. As we said on the pre-fight, it's been a little bit slow from the UFC the past couple of weeks. The cards have not been overly stacked, but when they do put on a card that has this level of talent on it, it did not fail to disappoint. Wow, what a night. Finish after finish after finish. Now, George, you're going to talk a little bit about the early prelims, I believe, and the early prelims where there was a couple of finishes. We had a 15-second knockout.
Yeah, man. The night started off real quick on the early prelims. We had Semelsberger get a 15-second KO, and then Jalen Turner as well carried on his great run. He beat an undefeated Uros Medic to by submission as well. So, yeah, man, this night started off with a bit of a bang, and the early prelims, which sometimes can take quite a while to get through. We see quite a few decisions on those early prelims, but not last night. The guys wanted to get it done quickly, try and get some performance bonus checks from old Uncle Dana.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine that the bonus checks would have been flying out the door yesterday. You know, honourable mentions before we really break down the actual fights themselves. The Volkanovski fight was phenomenal. I mean, what a title fight as well. Valentina looking as amazing as ever, and Jessica Andrade knocking out Calvillo, who's never been finished in the UFC. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. It really, really is. To be a UFC fan and to be a fan of mixed martial arts and to watch last night was just a real pleasure. But we're going to start with Chris Daukaus last night. What happened to Shamil? He just did not get started at all, did he? It was just, he just looked like a fish out of water. But I felt like Chris Daukaus was getting caught just a little bit too much. What was your take on that fight?
Yeah, no, I remember us talking about this during when it was going on, and it's true. Daukaus is still young in this game. You know, he's one of these new age heavyweights that we talk about, and he's got a bit more to learn. But you're right, Shamil was kind of stuck in first gear, and he couldn't really get out of it at any point last night. And when those punches landed from Daukaus, you know, Shamil didn't really want to be there no more. And in the end, he got away with a couple, and then that one landed, and that was it. Lights out, game over.
And the spit was flying.
Oh, the spit was flying.
That was brilliant. Yeah, the whole commentary booth was like, yep, there's a lot of spit flying here, like snot and everything, man. That was a crazy. It happened twice as well. He got rocked twice, and there was just snot all up the side of his head, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, Daukaus clearly hits quite hard. So, yeah, no, it's what we thought was going to happen, though, right? We thought that Daukaus would probably go in there. He would still look like a guy that's learning his trade, but would ultimately get the finish, and that's kind of how it worked out last night. And it was a good victory for him. You know, he, like I said, he climbs the rankings now. I think that makes him 7 or 8 in the kind of UFC rankings come Tuesday. So he's getting close to a big fight, but there is still some stuff to learn for sure.
Very much so, and he's still, you know, after last night, he's 12-3 now. But I feel like, I just feel like he's in the wrong weight category. You know, we mentioned this last night when we were watching the fights live, and he just looks like he's got a lot of loose skin. Like, I reckon he could definitely make 205 if he wanted to. But as we see with these kind of fighters, he's not overly heavy. I think he came in at 231 or 234 or something. He wasn't overly heavy for the heavyweight division, as we've seen that some people, you know, Francis Ngannou, the champion, is obviously going to come in at like a solid 260, 265 or something. You know, he's going to come in right at the top end of the spectrum, but he's a physical specimen, this guy, you know. He really is a physical specimen. Muscle on top of muscle on top of muscle. And I appreciate that muscle doesn't always win fights, but in the heavyweight division, people like Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, Stipe Miocic, these kind of people, I feel, would just completely run through Chris Daukaus at the stage that he's at now with regards to his muscular physique and his endurance.
Hey, look, I'm going to mention a guy that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, but you only have to look at John Jones and how he's building his body up. You know, he's not coming in and being a 230 pounder. He's building his body up to be a 250 plus pounder at heavyweight. So these guys have big muscle on them. I agree with you. I actually think Daukaus could go to 205, and I think he'd be super dangerous to 205. So maybe we might see that happen. Should it not work out at heavyweight? But I think for the time being, he's going to stick around and see how far he can get up the ladder in the heavyweight division.
And it's funny you should say John Jones, because obviously he got arrested again for battery and assault and whatever the hell he decided to do with his life, which is just super, super unfortunate. We're not going to touch on it too much because we're going to talk about the positive things from last night, which is UFC 266. But John Jones, unfortunately, would have packed on all of this muscle and we may never see him fight again, which is extremely unfortunate. But it is what it is. He's making his bed. He's laying in it. The bed has got glass in it and bricks, and he's not having a comfortable sleep at all. Now, obviously, last night as well, we had two gentlemen that had a lot of issues to getting into the octagon together. Dan Hooker and Hazrat Nasparat.
Hazrat Haqparast.
Nasrat Haqparast. Honestly, it's a tricky name. I apologize. We're going to get through it. Dan Hooker, nice and easy, unfortunately. It is what it is. But what a fight between those two gentlemen. Dan Hooker looked phenomenal yesterday. The bodywork was fantastic. The leg kicks were fantastic. The combinations, the range management. It looked really, really good. It looked like a Dan Hooker that looked like a new man coming off of his loss to Michael Chandler, who's obviously a phenomenal fighter. But what did you see yesterday that you didn't see against Chandler, which is obviously anything, which is obviously something? Do you know what I mean?
What I saw last night was a rejuvenated Dan Hooker, a guy who showed Haqparast that there's levels to the game still. And Haqparast is a very talented up-and-coming lightweight. But Dan Hooker absolutely confirmed to anyone that doubted him, which none of us here on this podcast did, that he is a top 10 lightweight in the world. Absolutely confirmed. What I did love to see last night from Hooker was that who knew the guy could wrestle? Clearly he's been going away and working on that a little bit, so that's a positive. We all know that on the feet he is super dangerous, and he's got a great, obviously, background in the kickboxing from City Kickboxing. So yeah, it seems to be a bit more well-rounded from him. And look, for me, Dan Hooker, I don't think Dan Hooker was ever really away, to be honest, because when you look at the losses, the Chandler one happened, like those things happen in this sport. The Poirier fight was a war, man, and he was in that fight the whole time. So I think when you look at it, you have to just go, look, it was a bad night at the office against Chandler, and last night he kind of got back to winning ways, and he looks back, and the Dariush call out, I think that's a perfect fight next one. I think that's a perfect one for him to go to. Also, just quickly, obviously, it looks like City Kickboxing are moving to America now because of the COVID protocol issues in New Zealand, which is interesting. It just shows how much all of those guys, Hooker, Adesanya, Brad Riddell, Volkanovski, how those boys want to stay active and stay fighting. So that'll be interesting to see where they end up in the States, but positive news, I'd say.
No, definitely. And you touched on his wrestling last night. Nasrat actually went for a hook, and the level change, he did it twice as well. The level change from Dan Hooker was just crisp. So crisp. Boom, straight to the knees, drove straight in. Beautiful takedowns, really, really beautiful takedowns. And it was a little bit funny to see at the end that Nasrat clearly had nothing to give on the feet. And when Dan Hooker was just, the pressure and the ground and pound from Dan Hooker was just, when he was on top, was just fantastic. Short, sharp punches. It is what it is, but it's all points. Points on the board, points on the board, points on the board. And did you see at the end, Nasrat just had his head up and he was just literally like taking the punches, just like he had nothing. He was like, right, well, we've got 10 seconds left. Like, I'm just going to try and eat these punches. I don't know what was going through his head. Do you reckon it's just like an adrenaline thing?
Yeah, I guess so. These boys, you only have to look at the main event last night. I mean, what on earth got Ortega back up to his feet again and again? I'm guessing it's adrenaline, and a bit of self-pride in your own self. So these boys are tough, man. Haqparast, he's from Afghanistan, trains out of Germany. He's been through some stuff in the last few weeks. I don't think anything was going to get him out of there last night, really. Anyone who goes inside that octagon, they're tough as hell.
Yeah, and Dan Hooker as well. Super. What a gentleman. What an absolute gentleman at the end of the fight, paying his condolences and, kind of disregarding all of the light that was put on him and putting that on Nasrat as well for an amazing performance. And them having a bit of banter in the cage about, I thought we were just going to stand and bang, which is what we all expected. But then the takedowns, the constant movement and the constant pressure that we saw from Dan Hooker was just really, really good. And I think he'll give Dariush some serious problems. If they can get that sorted for kind of like, I reckon we could see that before the end of the year. Why can't we see that before the end of the year?
I think there's every chance we'll see that before the end of the year. Dariush says he wants to fight one more time before the end of the year. And we know that Dan Hooker is game all the time to fight. And you know what? I give Dan Hooker a great chance as well, because, like I said, he is a legit lightweight in the world. And when you've got guys like Eugene Behrman in your corner, there's no reason why you should be ruling any of those guys out. He showed again last night why he is the elite of the elite when it comes to coaching.
Absolutely. So, Prath, what did you think of Dan Hooker's performance last night? Just while we stay on this fight real quick.
Amazing performance, man. Great to see Dan Hooker come through with a win on an important fight. That meant a lot for him as well. And you can see now a lot of the Australian guys, New Zealand guys are now contemplating moving over to the United States now, so that they are able to train a little bit easier and make these fights a little bit easier. And I don't blame them due to the world the way that it is right now. But man, what an amazing performance for him to pull it out. Showed a different side of Dan Hooker that I think not a lot of people were really recognizing him for, which is his takedowns and his wrestling. So that was really, really awesome to see. Nasrat Haqparast put up a hell of a fight. I will give it to him. And he seemed almost shocked at the end of it to like turn around to Dan Hooker and be like, "Oh, I thought you were going to stand up with me." And Dan Hooker was like, well, I got you. And amazing takedowns, controlled beautifully. Like his use of the octagon was beautiful as well. What a fight, man. And I'm so happy for Dan Hooker now getting back on the winning column. I'd love to see him take a few more fights with these guys, because I think more so than anything, you need to get these guys confidence back. And I think fighting like Nasrat Haqparast has really allowed him to get his confidence back, because he looked like the Dan Hooker of, the last couple of fights, where he went into these fights thinking that he was going to win, but he was against Dustin Poirier. He was against Michael Chandler, the real top echelon of the division. So I would love to see him fight a couple more of these like lower ranked fights, and get his confidence back. But I think Dan Hooker is just so good, so well-rounded now. And he's added so much to his game that the guys at lightweight really need to take notice of this guy, especially the top 5 of the division, that now that he's added this wrestling into his overall skill set. But amazing performance by Dan.
Yeah, it really was. And then it seemed like last night we just had fantastic performance after fantastic performance with a little bit of a heavyweight sleeper in there. But we'll get to that in a minute. But the next fight we're going to talk about is obviously Marlon Moraes versus Merab Dvalishvili. What a fight. Wow, what a round.
That first round was
unbelievable. Unbelievable, but it was just crazy to see. And you know what, as much as I don't like there being a crowd sometimes, last night I felt like there was good bits and bad bits of the crowd. The USA chants while who was fighting yesterday while they were doing the USA
Ortega
thing, while Ortega was fighting. And then there was a couple of other bits where they were booing and stuff like that when Valentina was being a little bit more patient. But yesterday, between Marlon Moraes and Dvalishvili, the crowd was going absolutely insane during that round. Yeah. George, is Marlon Moraes finished? That's my question, because he's had some serious losses and he's had some really bad knockouts as well. The backwards roll when he got knocked out by Corey Sandhagen and stuff like that. So it's like, after last night and doing as well as he did, but then still getting finished, where do you think he goes from here?
Well, I think really what happens is he kind of falls towards the kind of lower end of the top 10, but obviously continues in the UFC. If Marlon Moraes was to leave the UFC and go to Bellator, he'd end up probably becoming a champion, to be honest. So, he's still got something to offer, but like we were just saying off, before we started recording, this division is just ridiculous. And, Merab is just another one of these guys who is now here in the top 10, who is just a horrible night out for anybody. And it happened to Moraes last night. And I think what happened was Moraes just caught him, and suddenly Merab looked like he was all over the shop. And like they said on commentary, he just punched himself out. And that's not a bad thing, because it looked like Merab was done. I thought at one point the referee was just going to step in and go, no, that's it. Like, that's enough. Like, but like you said on our WhatsApp group, the guy looks like he can just, like, he is what his name is, isn't he? He's a machine, isn't he? He just does not seem to get put down by anything. And he came back and absolutely nailed Moraes, come the second round. I think it was 131. I think 131 unanswered strikes. So, which is pretty insane. That's got to be the highest in that division, surely, I would have thought. So yeah, from Marlon Moraes, where he goes from here is he continues in the UFC. He probably is going to have to fight some up and comers, guys who are desperate to find their way throughout the rankings. He might start to become the gatekeeper of this division. But yeah, I would certainly, if I was a UFC, definitely I wouldn't lose Marlon Moraes. And with Merab, where he goes, who knows? I was actually going to say that, like, him against Aldo would be a great one. But I mean, he's obviously being booked now against Rob Font. So yeah, who knows?
Great fight.
We'll see where Merab gets matched up next soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it'd be great to see him staying active as well. But yesterday, I thought it was a really, really good night of people. If there were any kind of like casuals to mixed martial arts into the UFC, I thought that his little motivational speech afterwards, that was like, you can do anything you set your mind to, and it was, really, really good to see, the sportsmanship from Dan Hooker, the fantastic motivational speaking from Merab, just like, it was really, really nice. It was really good to see. And from a fan perspective as well, it's good that you see these kind of people having respectful call outs, and there's no kind of like disrespect between anyone. And I think it was really, really nice to see that pretty much throughout the whole night,
That's because everyone is saving it for about 6 weeks' time, when Colby Covington turns up and starts absolutely just going for everybody and anybody. So everyone's just being nice until he comes along, and he'll then take up all of the nastiness, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, probably. Prath, what do you think of Merab's performance yesterday? Obviously, coming back from the brink of death, we should call him the zombie now as well, right?
Man, the chin on this guy is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I mean, just the heart and determination, not just the chin. I mean, the chin was obviously getting rocked there. That's why he was on the floor 3 of the times out of most of that round. But his resilience, his heart, his determination to come back and to, man, it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Just a guy who's done, who was spent, he was done. And I thought the same thing as you guys, right? I thought the referee was going to step in. He was going to stop the fight on multiple occasions. Like, there was like 3 separate occasions where the ref could have stopped that fight. And I think it's to the credit of the referee, clearly, right, that that he was able to come back, compose himself. I think the corner work in between rounds was also what led to Merab being able to come in the second round and be able to really like put the fire behind him, because I don't think there's a human being alive that cannot be motivated when they've got Ray Lungo and Matt Serra shouting in their face. I think that's really what Merab would just kind of needed in that moment. He didn't need technical advice. Oh yeah, slip over the right hand and come over. No. Go out there and give me everything you got. Like that was what he needed to hear, and I think it was so beautiful. And I think so many people can relate to that as well. Just coming back from adversity, you've been hit, you've been struck a lot, and you're coming back and you win. That, like, the second round was just beautiful to watch, in that sense that he came back with everything as well. Like, he ended the first round dead. Second round, he came back like an absolute champion. And that's the kind of thing that you want to see out of these fighters, especially as they're ranking up, going up the ranks, right? You want to see that they're able to take the punishment, they're able to come back from this adversity and show their true mettle. That's why Alexander Volkanovski is on the place that he is. He's come back from so many times,
come back and won. And I think
now, when you show a guy like Merab who's able to do that as well, man, bantamweight and featherweight are just looking absolutely incredible at the moment. And this fight and also the Alexander fight just shows how powerful these divisions are. amazing heart, amazing determination. I can't wait to see who he fights next as well. And I think the crowd really got behind Dvalishvili as well, which is an incredible thing because he's a Georgian fighter. And for the American crowd to really get behind him, and I think it's just a testament to how strong his heart is and how strong his character is for the American crowd to get behind him. So like amazing to see that, because as we both know, we've disparaged the American crowd many times for chanting their stupid USA chant, even on fighters that are from the USA. Let's not get it twisted here, guys. But for them to really get behind Merab and to really push him and take him to the point where he was able to get into that second round and come back and win, like that second round was just beautiful. And it's kind of like a Rocky story, right? Like he came back in the second round and just turned everything around and was able to get the win there, man. I almost shed a tear watching that fight because I was happy for him that he was able to weather that storm, come back and win. Massive credit to Merab, and he's got a bright future at bantamweight. Even if in the next year or so, I like, you know, looking at the top of the bantamweight division, like the Yans, the Sandhagens, the Dillashaw's, you know, watching Marlon Moraes being able to put a pounding on him like that, I think he's going to really struggle with the Dillashaws, the Sandhagens, the Yans, maybe not the Aljamain Sterlings, because, you know, he doesn't really hit that hard, you know, just saying. He's going to really struggle with those guys. But I think in the next like year, 2 years, I think he's going to be able to get his skill set up to a level where he is competitive as hell with these guys. So I'm very much looking forward to that and to his bright future.
No, I completely agree with everything you just said. I mean, you summed it up perfectly and eloquently, might I add. Now, obviously, the next fight we're going to talk about is Jessica Andrade versus Calvillo. Calvillo? Calvillo.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It is what it is. She looked like an absolute monster yesterday, you know. She went in there with her usual bullying stance, her usual hands up. She's just got shoulders that are, you know, huge, man. She's just got these massive shoulders and these tiny little short arms. It's weird. She's like a aggressive, muscular T-Rex kind of.
T-Rex. Yeah.
It's very strange. Very, very strange.
Do you know what? Before, like when I was watching, because like I was leading up to the fights and I was watching the fights, I know we were texting a little bit back and forth, George. I know Connor was a little bit here and there. I know he's a bit of a casual fan nowadays. You know, we allow it, especially in his circumstances. He's got a lot of going on, right? But before the fight started, I remember like I was like, the one thing that really stood out to me in our conversation before the breakdown, the pre-fight breakdown, was that she had an OnlyFans, and I was like, this must be some weird stuff. And I did the deep dive research for you fellas. It's weird. It's very weird. It's very, very weird, guys. So but I'm so happy that she's able to make so much money off of that compared to fighting, man. And fights like that are the reason why she shouldn't even need an OnlyFans, but respect the fact that she does.
And of course, she probably made quite a lot of money on her OnlyFans after making more actual fighting fans yesterday. So yeah, fair play to her. And to get Calvillo out of there as well. And that's the first time she's ever been finished in the UFC or in her career, I believe, which is great. You know, Calvillo, I felt like she didn't really have a lot to give. You know, she didn't come off very offensive. I feel like maybe she didn't get her game plan started, or maybe she didn't have one. But the power of Jessica Andrade is just phenomenal. You know, we've obviously seen her take a couple of losses, a couple of bad losses, but it is what it is. And I think in this weight division and in this category, I think she's going to do very, very well up until a certain point. She'll get to the top level, and then unfortunately she'll be brought back down to earth. But do we see her as a champion again? George, what do you think? Do we see her with the strap again?
No, because she won't beat Valentina, and so. Although, weirdly though, after last night, she said that she's now looking to go back down to strawweight, isn't she? She's looking to fight the winner of Namajunas and Wei Li. So maybe that happens at some point. I don't quite know, maybe. But look, the bottom line is last night with Calvillo, you know, I said on the kind of preview that it was a great opportunity for her. Should she win by whatever way possible, she would find herself being the number one contender, and that would instantly cement you in a title fight with Valentina. But as soon as she got hit once last night and she felt the power, she just did not fancy it one bit after that. And in the end, it almost actually got to the point where it felt inevitable. I thought that she might not see out the second round, and then as the kind of like back end of the first was happening, I was like, oh, she ain't even going to get out of the first round here. And sure enough, the finish came. I think Andrade obviously relies on that pitbull style, doesn't she? She's like a bit like, I suppose, a bit like the female Volkanovskis. You know, they kind of like, they're just relentless, aren't they? Really,
bullying mentality.
Yeah, totally. They're bullies, aren't they? Yeah. And the only person that she can't bully is the champion, and that's because she's just too technically sound. But the rest of the girls, the best of the women in that division, you're able to kind of put them under a bit of pressure, and not many of them are going to be able to handle it. So, yeah, look, she's in that kind of awkward position in that division where she's probably the best of the rest, but the person above her is obviously just too good. So maybe going back to strawweight is her chance to go and find maybe UFC gold once again. But down there's some pretty good ones as well. So yeah, who knows where Andrade goes? But great performance last night, and she was back to her best, I would say.
Yeah, she's obviously 22-9 now, which is not, you know, it is what it is. As we said in the pre-fight, a lot of these women have got a bit of a mixed bag of records because earlier on in their careers, they obviously sometimes they take quite a lot of losses early on in their amateur careers and stuff like that. But it is what it is, you know. It is what it is, and we're going to see her in the UFC for a while, I think. Prath, what was your take on last night? Then, obviously, with the bullying style of Andrade and the clearly lack of defense that Calvillo had. But, you know, where do we see Calvillo go from here? Because she's going to be 9-3 now. Still very inexperienced and very young in her career.
So, like, Valentina is number 1, Jessica is number 2. That's the way I see it right now. I think from a skill level, the rest of the women are not going to be able to handle Jessica. They're not going to be able to handle Valentina in any way, shape, or form. And I think even Lauren Murphy is probably going to have fets against Jessica Andrade when she ends up going against her. I just think like she's got such a great style for most women fighting. And I think in general as well, her technique is at such a good level that she could bounce between strawweight, flyweight, and bantamweight against most women and have that style and probably win against 90% of the division as well. So Jessica is going to be one of those tweeners, right? That goes in between these different weight classes and is fighting a lot of different people. Like a very relentless performance, like amazing combinations. I loved her combinations all night long. She was throwing 3-piece combos. Most of the time when you watch most of these other fighters, they're throwing one punch and then they kind of move back, wait to get hit, and then they throw another punch. Jessica Andrade is throwing like 3-4 punches at the same time, which I really rate, man. And you don't see a lot of the guys do it, especially on the prelims and stuff like that. So to really pull it out against someone like Cynthia Calvillo, who, as we mentioned in the pre-show, or I mentioned in the pre-show, Dana White really rates Cynthia Calvillo. He always puts her on a main card, co-main. I think he's probably put her on a main event at some point. So for Jessica Andrade to come in and just kind of bulldoze her out of the way, it speaks a lot. I think it speaks a lot to the kind of top tier management of the UFC. They know that she's good. She's a former champion. I think her future and her best success will be at strawweight. I don't think that she's going to have a tough time against Joanna. She's going to have a tough time against Weili. She's going to have a tough time against Rose. But I think 98% of the other division, 97% of the division, she's really, really going to win. And I think as well, to be honest, at flyweight, she beats a lot of these women at flyweight as well. She beats a lot of the people at bantamweight. Like a lot of the people at bantamweight are wrestlers. They won't be able to handle her level of striking and her power. Look at Karolina, right? Karolina Kowalkiewicz took a nasty knockout loss to Jessica Andrade, and that's because she probably didn't respect the power of Jessica Andrade. And so I think she's got a bright future, man. She's 22-9, seems like on paper maybe not the best record, but I think the division is still growing. It's still at that point where it's really blooming and becoming the divisions that, like you watch the kind of men's divisions of the ones that kind of grew a little bit later, like the bantamweight division, like the featherweight division, who were dominant, had a dominant champion for a very long time. At bantamweight, we had Dominic Cruz. At featherweight, we had Jose Aldo, right? Valentina Shevchenko is now that person who is going to really make the division kind of come to her level of striking, her level of technique. and it's up to these other ladies to really, really establish themselves as that level at that. Sorry, for them to establish themselves at that level, and we're still in the growing process. It's still going to take a couple of years. Dominic Cruz reigned for like 4-5 years as the champion, I wouldn't say. Jose Aldo probably around the same time, 4 or 5 years as the real like top dog of the division with nobody near them. You know, at Aldo they chucked Korean Zombie, Chad Mendes. They chucked a lot of people at him, and none of them were able to beat him. And that's what you're seeing from Valentina now. Valentina is the guy. Is the girl that is really like setting the standard for the rest of the division. We're just waiting for Valentina Shevchenko to meet her Conor McGregor, right? So that's what happened at featherweight. We waited for Conor McGregor to come, and when he came, he knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. And it's going to be that moment. When that happens, is it a year from now? Is it 2 years from now? Is it 3 years from now? Is it 4 years from now? We don't know. And I think we just have to kind of look at the division and how it grows along with the way. But it's a really interesting time to watch these fights happen, because every single person is growing from fight to fight. Lauren Murphy probably will grow from that fight. She would now become, number 3, right? How we said Valentina is number 1, Jessica Andrade is number 2. I think Lauren Murphy's got a really good chance of being that number 3rd person now, coming off of that loss, learning those things against such a high level fighter. She will become that 3rd person. But now we're still in the baby stages of the women's flyweight division. So I think it's smart for Jessica to go down. I think she'll have the advantage. I think she'll bully a lot of these women at strawweight. But does she beat a Rose? No. Does she beat Weili? No. Does she beat Joanna? Probably not. So I think she will be kind of a perennial top contender. But will she be a champion again? Probably not. That was a really long way to answer. Will she be a champion again? I should have just said, no, she's not.
We got there in the end. I like it. We got there. No, solid answer, man. Solid answer. Now we've completely said everything there is possible on Jessica Andrade. We'll move swiftly on to the heavyweight bout from yesterday that put everyone to sleep. Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I was expecting so much more from this, and it just did not deliver at all. Curtis Blaydes, obviously, with his ginormous, swollen, shut eye, did not look great at all. But to battle through that and still get a win, fair play to him. There was a lot of boos in the crowd. There was a lot of annoyance, I think, from the crowd as well, because you expect so much from these heavyweights. Jairzinho coming in with quite a good background as well and a fantastic kickboxing acumen. And then going in against Curtis Blaydes, who obviously coming off a loss, you're going to expect him to want to make some noise. And we didn't really see a great amount. It was a bit of a flat performance, I feel, from the two of these gentlemen. So that's all we're going to say on it. And we're going to move swiftly on to someone that really didn't want to be there. Nick Diaz did not want to be in that octagon at all. He didn't want to be in there. He didn't want to be in there with Robbie Lawler. I feel like it was just a waste of his time. And the end of the fight as well, we're going to all throw our 2 cents on this, but he got rocked with a check right hook, I believe it was, sat him down. He took a knee. Lawler missed with the uppercut slightly, kind of caught the shoulder. And then
Caught him with the uppercut.
Did he catch him, or was it kind of like a graze? I feel like as he kind of went up for it, it was kind of like a grazing shot.
Yeah, grazing. I feel like he definitely at least got a little bit of contact. But yeah, definitely grazing, but hit him for sure with the uppercut.
And then Nick Diaz rolls to his back, expecting, maybe, come and hit me. Similar to what we see Nate do as well. Come down here, come into my world. And then to say, I'm done. I've had enough. For the UFC, the true fans, the kind of like golden era fans, to see your boy go out like that must have been very, very, very sad. But George, what did you think was going through his head yesterday?
He quit on himself, basically. That's what happened. Didn't fancy it anymore. I got to be honest, I was interested to see how this fight was going, but now I've seen it, wouldn't say the word, I'm not sure the right word's uncomfortable, but it was a bit like the more confused I am by like why that was ever booked. Like you said, Diaz didn't want to be there. Lawler looked all right, but he looked every bit of 1 and 4 out of the octagon for a little while. He looked rusty as hell as well, to be honest.
And
Like
39
Diaz
years old.
at 39 years old, and Diaz looked like he was like trying to tickle him basically. Like I know he was like throwing a lot of shots. They both were throwing a lot, but they weren't doing anything. I don't know. I wasn't massively excited before it. I then watched it and was like, this is ridiculous. And then like when Diaz basically quit on himself, I actually thought at that point he was actually starting to take the piss out of people. And it was like, it's like, maybe, people that love Nick Diaz and, kind of Stockton and the 209 and Nick Diaz Army and all this kind of stuff, they just don't care. They just want to see Nick Diaz fight and perform. But for me, it was just, I don't know. I actually have been struggling to find the words for this all day. I thought it was completely pointless. That's the only really way I can go with it. Everyone's like, this is the fans fight. This is one for the fans. If that's for the fans, then Christ, the UFC are in dire straits, because it was turgid. It was rubbish. It was completely and utterly pointless. And I was actually quite glad, to be honest, because I didn't want to see that for 25 minutes. I would have fallen asleep. It was just.
Go on.
No, it's just like I said. I got no words really. I said there's nothing really to say about it apart from the fact that I don't need to see Robbie Lawler back there again. I definitely don't need to see Nick Diaz back fighting again. I just don't need to see it anymore. The game's changed. Like from when these boys were in their heyday, 5-10 years, well, more than 5 years ago for Diaz, 5-10 years ago in that kind of bracket. The game has changed now. I just don't need that anymore. We could have had any fight. You could have put Marab and Moraes, up on the main card, and that would be much better than seeing those two last night. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Nick Diaz he was just straight punching. It wasn't like he had sort of any, he's obviously got good boxing, and the commentary was saying, oh, they're going to stand, they're just doing boxing together. Robbie Lawler's head movement was very good. He was always, cutting the angles, moving from side to side, but Nick Diaz was just completely square on, which is what you don't generally do that in boxing. And he had no kind of movement to his punches. He was just kind of like throwing his hands. It was strange.
It annoyed me though, like how everyone well, the crowd, obviously I get it, but like all the commentary like hyping it up like it was this really great thing. It was like it's not. This is terrible. This looks really bad. Like this is not entertainment. This is not a good look. Nick Diaz had no interest. If Nick Diaz could have pulled out last night before the fight started, he would have. But I think probably Dana White said to him, "No, you're signed in here. Like you're getting in. You're fighting. Like there's no otherwise I'm taking all the money off the table and you can just go and poke it basically."
Yeah.
He looked like he just did not even want to be there. Like even small things, right? Like he tried to walk in with his top on still. It was like,
yeah.
It's like he looked like he just didn't know what he was doing or where he was. It was bizarre. The whole thing was weird. But yeah, crap. I mean, you go for it and try and break it down a bit better than what I am.
I wish I had more of a technical breakdown of everything that, everything I could verbalize for it. It was such a weird fight, dude. It was, I felt the same way as you. Like, I felt like a bit bad for watching it, to be honest. It felt like, God, yeah, it felt like it was a different Nick Diaz for sure. I didn't know what to expect, and I think this was obviously the community, the verbiage that a lot of people were kind of talking about beforehand. But I think for me, I was really impressed with how strong Robbie Lawler came out in that first round. In that first round, you could tell he was coming for Nick Diaz's lunch money, and you don't generally see that from Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler generally gets better as the fight goes on, and so for him to really to come out so strong in the first round was really evident to show how much, you know, Robbie was really motivated for this fight and to really like go forward and to win this fight and have this on his record and say I beat Nick Diaz. You know, Nick Diaz didn't really care whether he beat Robbie Lawler, and I think that was very evident from his performance in the octagon. I think Nick Diaz was kind of there to get a paycheck a little bit. I don't know, you know, what his financial situation was. He was talking on the when he was talking to Brett Okamoto on ESPN, he was saying about how he met, you know, a lot of very powerful people in Las Vegas, and that they kind of screwed him out of like opening schools. I think he wanted to open a few schools in California and Vegas and stuff, and that he got screwed over. So I don't know if him fighting as a result of that. I would say, so one of the things that I wanted to research before we got on here was how much he got paid, because I think that's very important to see, you know, against other fighters, against other champions. You know, Valentina Shevchenko is fighting on this card, right? Valentina Shevchenko deserves every bit of millions upon millions upon millions, right? Her technique, her skill level is deserved of that. Nick Diaz got paid more than all these guys. Nick Diaz got paid more than Valentina, than Alex, than Brian, than Lauren Murphy, than Robbie Lawler. He got paid the most. He got paid 400K flat. So you know how normally guys will have a 200K win, 200K to show, 200K to win. Nick Diaz got a flat 400K. According to the website is MMAsalaries.com, which looks pretty like, you know, I kind of have followed MMA, you know, the disclosed salary payout of most of these events and stuff. So I would, from, you know, what I know of the other fighters and stuff like that, I would say that's pretty close to, that would be as true as it gets, right? I think the only person that really supersedes that is the Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. You know, these kind of level of fighters are really getting like the 500Ks and plus. So maybe he got some more undisclosed, maybe like through pay-per-view or something like that, he's getting more money, because I can't really see any other reason for him to really make much more than that. And for him to come back for 400K despite, you know, bitching and moaning about the fact that he's never, you know, he never got paid enough. He didn't get paid enough to fight this guy. I didn't get paid enough to fight GSP. I didn't get paid enough to fight BJ Penn, but here I am and the fans don't give a shit about me. So like the fact that I think the fans give him so much love is actually changed my opinion a little bit, especially looking at his performance there on Saturday night. He quit in that octagon. He quit and gave up, and he turned around, and as soon as Lawler walked away and told him to get up, I knew it was over. Do you know what? I actually knew a little bit earlier in the night that Nick Diaz wasn't going to do anything. And that was when his teammate, Martin Sano, went up and got KO'd in 15 seconds by Matthew Semmelsberger. I knew at that point that Nick Diaz is in for a hell of a night here, because I know that those fighters are generally quite close to each other. And there was another guy who fought on the fight after that and won by decision, but he kind of didn't look that great. So I didn't expect Nick to come in here and be like Nick Diaz of 2007 or 2006 when he was really at his top tier level. So yeah, disappointing, weird. I feel weird. I feel weird for watching it. I'm sure George feels weird for watching it as well. And so do you, Connor. I don't really need to see that again. I don't care who he fights. And his verbiage of saying that he wanted to fight Usman before. Usman would kill you and take everything you own. He would be more ruthless than Robbie Lawler, which is a hell of a saying.
I'd say most of the top 15 would beat Nick Diaz at welterweight after that showing last night. The one thing I would say, though, is I know it sounds like we've cussed Nick Diaz. What I do hope, though, is that someone doesn't come along and try and make a freak show out of him. You know, we see all these exhibition, like, boxing matches and all this kind of stuff. I hope we don't end up down that road with Nick Diaz and he becomes this kind of, you know, becomes part of the circus pretty much. Yeah. But I'm not gonna lie, that wouldn't be surprising.
We rag on Dana, we rag on the athletic commissions for booking these kind of fights and letting these fights actually happen. I don't think Dana White would want to see Nick Diaz get booked again. I think he looked at that performance last night and was like, do you know what, Nick? You know, get out of here. I'm hoping that he stays within his contract though, so that he doesn't go and fight in bare knuckle or go fight for Bellator or go fight for World Series, PFL or any of these other organizations. He needs to just stay retired, do your triathlon, sell your weed, have a happy life, mate.
Exactly. It's exactly that, and we said this on the pre-fight, and I said this myself, the game has changed so much since these people were good. But I think the one takeaway point from yesterday was that Robbie Lawler looked fantastic. It was 15 pound heavier than he wanted to fight at. And I felt like he was
at
ready for
39 years old
170
as well.
Yeah.
And at 39 years old, for him to come out and be like, have such a strong showing in the first round is amazing, man. And he's training with young savages like the Michael Chandlers, Jason Jackson, like that Sanford MMA team is full of killers. And for him to come out and have that such a great performance in the first round, I'm hyped for him, man. I'm hyped. And but I'm just hoping, please don't match him up against like Masvidal. Please don't match him up against the top of the division. Please just give him like a whatever fighter, maybe a guy on his way out, or maybe, someone like that. Please don't give him like a young guy or someone in the top 15. Please, for the love of God, Dana, for the love of God, Sean Shelby, preserve Robbie Lawler's soul. He's one of the good ones. He deserves to go out on a win.
The other thing as well about Lawler as well, I think Lawler came into that actually pretty annoyed, because I feel like most of the week it kind of came across that Nick Diaz was kind of taking the piss out of him, to be honest. The changing of the weight, contractually that shouldn't happen, all this kind of stuff. It was just a bit of a joke, to be honest. But there we go.
5 rounds. It was 5 rounds. Why? When John Anik was calling out like the 5-round fights are for championship bouts and main events, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you've got a fight that's not even a co-main and it's 5 rounds. You're like, well, how is this fucking fair?
The Diaz boys still they want, because the only other time that ever happened was his brother when they fought Leon Edwards. There's too much of just letting them do what they want.
I think as well, Dana looks at them and goes, "Oh, okay, these guys are triathletes. They generally get better as the fight goes on. Like Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz, I would say are generally fighters that would have gotten better as the fight goes on. So I think maybe he kind of played into that a little bit, but he's way past his time.
Without veering off subject too much though, like when Diaz fought Edwards back in June, or I think it was in June, although he had that last 30 seconds where he rocked Edwards, but he didn't exactly look great for the other 9 minutes of those last 2 rounds. He looked like he was completely utterly spent. So, I just don't. Oh man, I don't know. I could go on about it for a long time, but
I agree, but I feel like that's the way that they play the game, and I think Dana White as well has kind of bought into the 5-round Diaz fight, if you will.
Yeah, no, I get it, but and the last thing I'll say on it is good luck to Nate Diaz getting past the 3rd round when you get booked against Vicente Luque at some point, because that's going to happen, isn't it? Good luck seeing out him. It's just not going to happen. Like, these boys aren't going to allow it to happen anymore.
Nate Diaz needs to fight Conor McGregor and then get the hell out of here. Get that trilogy fight with Conor, get that money, get the hell out of there, sell your weed, go live your quiet life in Stockton, California, fella. Both of you guys.
Absolutely. That's it. Is what it is. It is what it is. But not to dwell on that absolutely very strange performance from that. But let's move on to the champion. We've got 2 fights here left that we're going to talk about. We're obviously going to talk about Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy, it was fantastic. It was just a fantastic performance. And, we were talking about the betting odds and stuff like that. Valentina coming in at a minus 1,700 favorite. There is a reason. There is a reason why this woman goes into fights a minus 2,000, a minus 1,500, because she is cool, calm, collected. She is an absolute killer. And I thought for a split second yesterday, she was about to get her trademark crucifix and just start raining elbows. That little finishing sequence when she kind of rocked Lauren Murphy, I was like, she's trying to trap the arm here. She's got the right arm down. She's trying to trap the arm. She's got out of it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She is going to finish you. She will finish you however she wants to finish you. And wow, what a performance from her. What a performance. I was super, super hyped. I watched that fight twice all the way through just because super flat-footed. She knew she didn't have to respect the power of Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy had nothing to give her. The leg kicks were glorious on the way out, the combinations. I feel like she's just getting so much better. You know, Lauren Murphy's legs were chewed up. You can see the bruises on the inside and outside of her kneecaps. The accuracy of those kicks at the end of the combinations was just fluidity. You know, if there was a female version of Bruce Lee, Valentina Shevchenko is it. You know, she is in her own category. It's just, where does she go from here? She's just going to sit at the top of this pedestal that everyone's got her on deservedly. And she's just going to completely destroy and dismantle anyone put in front of her.
She's the best.
Oh yeah, well, no, she
best.
is the best. Yeah, she is the best. She is technically the greatest female fighter I think of all time. And that's not anything from Nunes. Nunes relies more on the power and all that kind of stuff. But technically, you know, she even technically stands up against any of the male fighters of all time. To be honest, she's one of the greatest of either gender.
From a technicality standpoint alone, she is by far one of the best.
And I think that's absolutely petrifying, because Lauren Murphy all this week, to be fair to her, has talked a really good game. Like, she has come across like she's very confident, like she really believes that she has a way to beat Valentina. And within about 30 seconds of the fight starting, all of that had drained out of her. It had gone instantly. And I think she was like a deer in headlights. She just didn't know what to do. And she was just there for the ride. And Valentina, I described Valentina last night a bit like when a cat catches a mouse. Like, you know how they don't really kill it, they just kind of like play around with it for a bit, and then they decide they want to kill it whenever they want. That was kind of like what was going on last night. Kind of, she was just messing around kind of a little while, and then she thought, do you know what? I think I'll put her out of her misery now. And that's kind of where we are with Valentina. I mean, these type of fighters, you kind of don't have words for them. They're just so exceptionally good that you just want to see them fight. I'm desperate to see Valentina. I don't care who it's against, to be honest. I'll see her fight against anybody. And I'm at the point with her now where kind of after her fight last night, she was talking about like people were asking, what happens next? Like, what do you do next? And she was saying, look, I actually want to stay at 125. I just want to beat anyone that comes my way at 125. I'm not interested in people coming up or me going up and fighting whoever else. I'm just going to stay here. Whoever the UFC put in front of me, I'll fight them and I'll beat them. And I'm just going to reign in my division for as long as possible. And you know what? I quite like that stance she's taking, to be honest. The only thing I wanted to say about Lauren Murphy was Lauren Murphy deserved to be there last night, but she just wasn't good enough. The advice between rounds by her team was a disgrace. Like, they made it worse for her, to be honest. It would have been way better if they said to her, you're getting beaten up so badly here. You're losing every round, every minute of every round. We've got to do something different. Telling her that she's doing this right and doing that right and you're doing really well and all this. It's like, why? Stop lying. You're more qualified to be there than any of us fans sat at home watching. But even I know that she's getting annihilated by Valentina. Just be honest with her. She'd probably appreciate that more than being told that she's doing really great. The idea is not to go in there and just try and get through 5 rounds and not be finished by her. The idea is to try and win, try and beat her. So I think in that regard, that was disappointing, because I hate when I see that, because it just does fighters a disservice massively. But look, Valentina, she's incredible. And at about 5 o'clock in the morning yesterday, I actually considered if I could leave my missus and marry Valentina. I fell in love with her a little bit last night. She's just incredible. So yeah, no, I can't wait to see her fight again. Whoever that's against, I've got no idea, but I will certainly be there watching it and watching the incredible mixed martial artist that she is.
And just a little touch on that. She would destroy you, George. She would take your soul.
Yeah, literally.
She could do whatever she fucking wanted. I don't care. She could ruin me. I'd do whatever she wanted. Whatever.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Anyway,
I don't care. I literally couldn't care less. I'm massively in love with her.
Not even an Amanda Hebas? We're going straight for Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
She's pretty.
Alexa Grasso.
No, Valentina. Nah, she's got something going on, Valentina.
It's the gun. It's the gun on her hip that's like, yeah, she will kill you. You know what I mean? But Prath, did you see any holes in Valentina's game yesterday? Because clearly Lauren Murphy didn't, but could you pick anything out of her performance yesterday that was not immaculate?
No, I really can't, man. I really, really can't. There were times when I was watching some of the fights, like I want to say it was the Volkanovski fight, where I saw loads of opportunities for Volkanovski to like throw knees when he was like he would like move. Oh no, sorry, it was the Jairzinho Rosenstrike versus Curtis Blades. When Curtis Blades would feint for a takedown, man, it's like, why are you not throwing a knee up the middle? Why are you not throwing an uppercut up the middle? But like, I watched Valentina Shevchenko and I'm like, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. Like, leg kicks won't work against her. Like, head kicks won't work against her. Punching is not working against her. You can't take her down. You can't submit her. What can you do? You just have to survive against her. And I think that is kind of the MO of most of these fights now. You have to just survive against her. Can you survive without being TKO'd by her is an accomplishment now, which is crazy to say. And I just wanted to touch upon the point that George made, which was the corner advice. How much during the week when you watch the Embedded, when Lauren Murphy is in Texas with her team, she's talking about how like this is the best team that she's had. They, her husband is in her corner, and like these are all great people, and she feels motivated. She feels like she is in the best position she can be. And when you watch her go between the third and the fourth round, where she ultimately ended up getting finished, DC made a huge point of pointing out that they weren't giving her any advice in the corner. They were like, you're doing good, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like the advice should be that you need to come out and try and finish her. That should be the advice in every corner of every round against Valentina Shevchenko, because you're not winning a points fight against Valentina Shevchenko. She is going to slap you upside your head multiple times. Like it was crazy to watch, in the sense that just the skill discrepancy between her and any other woman in this division is crazy. And I talked about how Valentina is number one and Jessica is number two. The gap between those two is insane alone. And so Valentina's skill gap with the rest of the division is so evident. She is Jose Aldo dominating the featherweight division. She is Dominic Cruz dominating the bantamweight division for many years. Like this is the person that you're going to consider the GOAT. Maybe 10 years down the line, when there is another female flyweight fighter who's come through, who is really at that level that makes her look crazy, makes her not look good. That's going to be the crazy moment, and that's going to take a long time to get to. And even in 5 to 10 years, I'm sitting here thinking like, nobody's got a chance against her. Nobody. I think she's going to retire as the top women's flyweight fighter of all time. And I don't think anyone is going to come close to making the impact that she has had on that division. But I also think she is at the birth stages of that division as well. So whether she gets regarded as the greatest of all time, hindsight 2020, we look, 10, 15 years down the line, do we maybe still consider her the GOAT of the flyweight division? I'm sure at some point, at that point, that there was another fighter that was able to supersede what she was able to do. But I think she is always going to be noted as like a forefather of the women's divisions, like Amanda Nunes, like Ronda Rousey, as much as I hate to say that, as much as Ronda Rousey, as much as Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko sits amongst those as a pioneer of the women's fighting in general. No division, strip away the division, strip away all that stuff. She will regard it from a technical standpoint, just from a technical standpoint alone, she supersedes everyone, and she will be known as like one of those forefathers of the flyweight division. But just she will be forever regarded in the Ronda Rouseys, the Miesha Tates, the Holly Holmes, the Amanda Nunes, like those real like icons of the women's fighting divisions. She will forever be regarded in that category, and she deserves it.
She does. She deserves everything that's coming to her, and she deserves more pay as well. Do you know what I mean? She deserves to get a bit more money for what she's doing.
Dude, I've got her salary in front of me. She made 200 and 200. what the hell? She made 200 and 200. She
Plus,
did
plus,
make
plus pay-per-view, plus her
Pay-per-
sponsorship from Monster and everything. So she's taken home a
Yeah.
good amount of money. So
so in the total of the graph I've got in front of me, it says that she got 892k, including pay-per-view payout, estimated performance bonus. She obviously got 50k for the performance bonus as well.
sure.
Sponsorship 42k, so it totals at 892k, which means she made the most money that night out of all the other fighters. Nick Diaz, Alex Volkanovski, like all of these guys, she made the most money, deservedly so, but she needs to make more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she could be touching the mill. She could be touching the mill and everyone would be happy with that. You know, if she pulled home a mill and she's from like Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that money goes further in that country, but I can imagine that amount of money, the money's going to go pretty damn far. You know, I might actually do a little bit of research as to what she's spending her money on. You know, I can imagine she's probably buying half the country.
Guns, bullets.
She lives in America, doesn't she?
I thought she lived in like Texas or something like that.
No, Washington. I mean, look, I don't know. I'm not stalking her because I said I love her or anything, but
Kind of fancy her.
all my love letters really sent to her.
Her and Manel Cape.
No, Manuel Cape, I'm divorcing him. Fuck, screw that.
Not worth it. Not worth your time. But
no, he weren't there. Nothing to me.
moving on to the main event. What a main event to close out the evening. What an absolute battle between these two gentlemen. You know, the skill level of Alex Volkanovski is highly, highly underrated. Fantastic performance from him. Similar sort of vibe of what I said about Valentina. The leg kicks, the constantly changing up and down, but the body work, the constant barrage of punches. You know, not emptying. It almost looked a little bit like the aggression of Merab that we saw earlier in the night. The ground and pound, the unanswered shots, the elbows raining down. I feel like, you know, in that third round when Brian Ortega nearly got like 5 submissions, I think it was. He threw up a triangle, he threw up the guillotine, he threw up everything he could possible, and then Volkanovski just did absolutely everything perfectly, rolling into him instead of rolling away, making sure he caught the leg, making sure he just did everything so well, staying calm in such, you know, mentally taxing situations. You know, it really looked like that guillotine was very, very deep on the neck. Obviously a very, very uncomfortable position to be in as well. He remained calm, managed to split the hands, turn, you know, these scrambles that he was just all of a sudden within the same 30 seconds, he ended up on top and he's raining down these elbows. It was just glorious to see. I feel like Brian Ortega's face has just got that, like, he bruises easily. Do you know what I mean? He's like a peach that you could just flick and he's like, right, that's it. This peach is like, now I've had enough of this. I'm going to just completely go to mush, because we saw it versus Max Holloway. He just got completely annihilated. His eyes were closed. Same thing we saw yesterday. He just looked really, you know, he really, really wore the damage. He really wore the damage. And I don't know if you noticed, I felt like, I don't know if it was the angle that we saw, but when the doctor was saying, how many fingers can you see? And Herb Dean had his fingers up. He's like, can you see 2? Can you see 2 fingers? Or can you see 3? Can you see 2 though? Can you see 2? And he kind of had 2 fingers up. And I was like, I'm pretty sure he can't see 2. And the doctor was like, can you just move over here? And then move over here? And Brian Ortega didn't know what was going on. He was looking around like, why am I walking over here? Should I be walking over here? Who is this in front of me? I feel like he didn't. I feel like, I don't know, from a fan, I don't know if you two kind of saw what I saw and had the same kind of feelings about it, but I feel like
Should have got stopped in the 4th round.
It should have got stopped. I feel like it shouldn't have gone further than that, because it didn't look like it was. It didn't look like he was, you know, actively defending himself, or it didn't. I didn't feel like he had anything else to give.
They picked him up off the ground and put him on the stool.
Yeah. Of which all of his weight was just being taken by the cage anyway. He was just kind of sat there and his entire body was just slumped.
Yeah. And he was looking around, and I can remember his cornerman, I think it was his cornerman's Tiki, which is one of his managers slash ex UFC fighter as well, and he was like yelling in his face, and Ortega just looked like
he had nothing to give.
he didn't really know what was going on. It was bizarre. I think the way he was laid out at the end of the fourth round, that the ref should have recognized that, he was spent, right? He was spent. They kept saying, he was spent. He was done. He was not spent. He was done. And I think the referee should have looked at him, seen how long it was taking for him to get off the floor, and just gone, you're good. You're done.
I think, there should be some sort of rule that says, like, right, if you once they've called the bell's gone. Volkanovski chipped off straight away. He was pumped, man. He was amped the whole fight.
Skipping back to his round.
Yeah, man. He had loads of energy, full of it, full of beans. But there should be like a right. You've kind of got between 7 to 10 seconds to get up here. Otherwise, you're being counted out. From when that buzzer goes, you need to be up in 10 seconds. I think, it shouldn't be like, right, yeah, cool. You can lay down for like 45 seconds. Then all of a sudden we're going to put some ice on your back and you're going to be back to normal. It's like, no, it should not be like this. It should not be like this. But George, what was your take on last night, man? Because it was a fantastic, fantastic fight. I know you texted me at like 5:54 a.m. I was fast asleep on the sofa. Unfortunately, I was in and out of sleep, and I was like, all right, I've made it to 3 a.m. I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I ended up, my eyes were like Brian Ortega's. One was slightly closed. The other one was moderately closed, But George, what was your take from last night of the main event? And what did you think about the it going to decision of which it didn't really need to?
Yeah, no, I did text you boys after that third round, because that third round was crazy. And I was like, oh, come on, one of you's going to be awake, aren't you? Like, to reply to that. So, yeah, no, it was an unbelievable fight, in the sense that I think last night it was a bit like Volkanovski's coming out party. Like, he's had some amazing wins over some amazing fighters, but the eyeballs that would have been on that fight, on that card as a whole last night, thanks to Nick Diaz, has basically elevated Volkanovski to a much higher playing field because of the incredible performance he then put in himself. For me, I said it before in the preview, Volkanovski is probably the most underrated fighter in the UFC. For me, I'd have him number 2 on my pound for pound list. Only Kamaru Usman for me is better than him. I'd have him ahead of Adesanya at the moment. I think what he's doing is unbelievable. Mostly because a lot of those guys, even at featherweight, they're actually quite long and tall, and he's so small, and the ability to kind of battle against that, which isn't easy, is quite impressive. Obviously Ortega was like that, Holloway was like that, and other guys as well in that division are similar in that kind of stature. They're quite lanky and tall, and he's obviously much shorter and more of a pit bull in that kind of style. But there was a couple of things that I picked out today, which I found out, which in the 2 title fights that Ortega's had against Max Holloway and Volkanovski, he's been hit with 524 significant strikes in those fights. That is incredibly high in title fights, and that shows that Ortega's got some holes in the game, which is that he gets hit way too much, and that's very visible by looking at his face after both fights. In contrast, though, Volkanovski in 10 UFC fights has only been hit with 531 significant strikes. He's had 7 more, yet he's been in 8 more fights. And I think that in itself just says it all about him. Like, he doesn't get hit. Like, his fight IQ is at such a high level that defensively or offensively, he's got the ability to do both things, and he's got it all nailed down to a T. He's starting to get to the point now where I don't quite know who beats him, and I'm gonna say it, and I might end up regretting it. I actually don't think even Holloway beats him in that third fight. I think he is the best featherweight on the planet at the moment. And actually, I think as well that he'll beat Holloway, and at that point, then we'll be saying how he's the best featherweight of all time. I think he's that good.
But do they give him the third fight? I mean, Max Holloway's lost 2, so it's like, Usually when you
I
have
think they do though.
when you have a trilogy, you have like a 1-1, and then it's like, oh, look at this, it's really competitive, it's 1-1. But this is kind of like it's already 2-0. And then what
Yeah.
happens? If Max gets a win, Volk has to get a rematch. And then we're going for, I don't think I've ever seen 4 fights of the same 2 people. I don't know if that's ever happened in UFC history.
That shows how controversial the second fight was, shows how good Max Holloway is. And I think to his credit, if he can beat Yair Rodriguez, that I think that he deserves that.
Yeah, and I think they will go with it. Obviously, that does seem to be a title eliminator. And probably Max will probably beat Yair. So at that point, then they've kind of got nowhere else to turn. They're going to have to go for that third fight. And both Volkanovski and Ortega acknowledged that this week. They said, look, we probably understand that whoever wins on Saturday, the first defense is going to be against Max. So, like, it is what it is. But, you know, yeah, in terms of Ortega and like how that kind of sequences, how the end of the third happened, and he was like laid out on the canvas, and they picked him up and put him back on the stool. For me, at that point, I was staggered when I was watching it because he was laid down there, and Herb Dean was just looking at him for like 5 seconds, and I thought he was out. I thought he was gone, and so I was just like, oh, that's it, done. Like and then suddenly all the corner come in and just pick him up, sit him down on the stool, and go, yeah, you're all right. You can crack on. You can continue. I was like, no, he looks like he's out. Like, he looks gone. Like, and Volkanovski saw it. You know, Volkanovski's seen it, and he laid into him more and more. And it was just a comfortable night's work for Volkanovski all round. You know, 50, 45, 50, 44. We've got no problem with any of that. I thought he won the whole lot. Even the round where Ortega had the 2 or 3 submission attempts to defend them like he did, and then finish on top with the ground and pound and basically finish him, like, still wins the round for me. So yeah, he's an unbelievable fighter. His fight IQ is unbelievably high. The people that he trains with, where he comes out of City Kickboxing, I've said it before, that's an incredible gym to be coming out of. And for me, he looks like one of these guys at the moment who looks like he's an unstoppable kind of force. He looks like he's got everything that you want, everything that you need. The confidence level was sky high, and it was a fantastic performance against a guy who I thought would give him more trouble than he did. He made it look quite easy last night, Volkanovski. But fair play, man. It was impressive. It was a great fight, though. An unbelievable title fight. It really was an unbelievable title fight. And it's definitely a fight of the year candidate. So, but yeah, no. Volkanovski, he's a pound for pound. He's a pound for pound guy at the moment. He's legit. And also, when I talk about pound for pound rankings, it is a joke at the moment because old Johnny Bones Jones is still number 1 on the pound for pound list. So, the UFC might want to sort that out fast.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be in the pound for pound rankings anyway. I mean, as much as I love this gentleman, it's very, very unfortunate what he's done and what's been going on. It is what it is. But it's crazy to hear the stats on the significant strikes to both these guys. That's crazy. I think, most of them would have come from Max Holloway because he just was peppering him all night, wasn't he? It was non-stop back then.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. I can't believe that in 10 UFC fights, Volkanovski had 538 significant strikes against him. That's only 53 a fight. Like, that's unbelievable, to be honest. That's
great defense. It's a credit to his defense. It's a credit to his in and out movement. I thought the in and out movement was fantastic. The leg kicks were fantastic. Shot selection was fantastic. It looks like very evidently that he's very tactical and he's very methodical with his approach to these fights. There are a lot of guys just go in and go, here's my skill set. I'm just gonna bulldoze you and hope for the best. It looks like he is very tactical and he's looking at the shots that Brian's throwing. I know famously John Jones would do research and go, here's your first favorite strike, second favorite strike, third favorite strike, fourth favorite strike, and go through the motions that way. And it looks like Alex kind of employs that a little bit because it just looked like he had an answer for everything that Brian threw, including the submissions, including the bit that shows where Brian's kind of skill set lies, right? Amazing performance by Volkanovski, and I think that if he does beat Max, he will be widely regarded as the best. I don't know if he'll be regarded. What defines the greatest of all time for me? When you look at something like Jose Aldo, like I think for me, Jose Aldo will be forever regarded as the best just for how long his reign was. I know Max was able to come along and beat him, but what is that what we define as? So every next person that beats that champion is now the greatest of all time. I feel like we need to put a staple in it and go, you know, what Aldo was able to accomplish during the time that he was makes him the greatest, or Max after beating Aldo and taking taking over almost from Jose Aldo. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I do think that the headbutt also played a big part. I think it was in the third round or the third round? Yeah,
Early in the
that kind of
third, yeah.
changed it kind
Clash
of
of
changed
heads.
the game. It changed the game a little bit, especially for Brian, because I think that's what broke his nose, and then his breathing, obviously, after that would have changed from there on. But amazing heart from Brian. But we knew he had amazing heart. We watched the Max Holloway fight. We know that he's able to hang in there. But do we want to see him just get brutalized by these guys? I wouldn't say Alex is the biggest power puncher in the division, but he was able to really put some damage on Brian's face. I don't know if that's because Brian is now like it cuts up quite easily because of the Max Holloway fight. All these things kind of it's like here's your last fight screwing you over in your new fight, and that's kind of going to be his story here. But like the thing I was saying to you guys, what do I want to see from Brian Ortega? I want to see Brian Ortega stop worrying so much about his striking. His striking can be dog shit. But I think as long as his wrestling and his takedowns is there, then that opens the world for his jiu-jitsu. And you could see as soon as he even got a split second to engage in jiu-jitsu, he almost submitted Alex Volkanovski to the point where even Alex in the post-fight press conference was like, that was like, I'm about to lose my title. I need to stop. I need to calm down and then get through this. And he was ready to give up on his title. That's how deep that was. So Brian stopped, as much as that zombie fight was good. The other thing we were saying was that, Zombie is generally quite flat-footed. Alex Volkanovski was on his tippy toes and he was running around in circles and he was throwing leg kicks, moving away, great defense. Like that doesn't work against someone like Alex Volkanovski. That won't work against Max Holloway, who's just has great movement and things like that. So I think he's going to really struggle against those guys. I think ultimately all he needs to work on is having better wrestling to then take it down to where he is the most comfortable. And I don't think any of these guys come close to him in jiu-jitsu, Alex Volkanovski included, but he just really didn't have too much of an opportunity to take it there. Whether that's to Alex's credit, whether that's Brian's wrestling is not good enough to take Alex Volkanovski down. Like, I don't know what one of those things it kind of hits on, but that's kind of where I think Brian would really, fulfill his skill set to the biggest, to the best way he can.
And the last thing I'll say on it from Brian Ortega's point of view is, can we please just get Zabit back fit and healthy so we can do Ortega against Zabit? Because that is the only fight that makes sense now once they're both fit and healthy. Those two against each other is as a top fight.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the weight cut is a bit too much for Brian Ortega as well. He looks a bit like a meth addict. When he was on the scales, he just looked super beyond drained. Like Conor McGregor at 145 kind of drained. He just didn't look right yesterday. I don't know if there was an issue with the weight cut, but he just, I don't know. What do you two think? Because I feel like he looked very, very skeletal. Do you know what I mean?
I think he's looked like that for a lot of his career, though. He's always looked a bit kind of like drawn out and a bit like he's had a tough weight cut. I've never ever looked at him and gone, wow, Ortega looks unbelievable on the scale here. Like, yeah. I've never really had that thing. I also do think that Volkanovski got in his head for a lot of the week as well. I think there was a lot of, the kind of like him like saying, I don't like drug cheats. You shouldn't even be here. That really threw Ortega. He looked prior to, I think the moment where it changed was at the ceremonial weigh-in where he said, like, screw the belt, I'm coming for your head. Like, I think he kind of regained himself a little bit. But up until that point, it looked like all week long, like he was a bit of a shell of himself. And, but I've always thought on the scale, personally, with the weight, he's always looked a bit like it's been a bit of a tough week for him weight cut wise.
Yeah. Yeah, I know in his earlier fights he was having troubles making the scales. 140, I believe he weighed in, 148, 147. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, and he did miss weight for a few of those earlier fights, but maybe he got his stuff together a little bit more. But then as you're growing older as well, like he hasn't, we think of Brian as a young fighter, but there's been so much time between his fights as well, between the Max fight and the Korean Zombie fight, and between the Zombie fight and this fight. Like there's been so much time that he's grown up in that time. So maybe his body is, he's getting a little bit older. So he's not able to hit the weight cut as neatly as he was maybe when he was a bit younger. But yeah, I think 155, like he gets destroyed at 155 though, to be honest. Like he's not even able to keep up with some of these guys at 145. I think at 155, these guys just take him down and smash him beyond belief.
Imagine what Justin Gaethje does to him at 150.
Man.
The
Justin
idiots.
Gaethje, Dan Hooker kills this man.
Poirier, the whole lot of them.
Poirier.
To be honest. It'd be messy.
It really, really would. But lads, that is our full wrap of UFC 266. And thank you very much for breaking down the fight. It was a pleasure talking to you both. And obviously last night we all stayed up as long as possible to try and catch these fights. But over in the UK, it's a tough break, 1 a.m. starts for a 7:30 finish.
Yeah, and we won't talk about Joshua Usyk, We'll just leave that over there somewhere. We'll just leave that over there, somewhere over there.
Have you seen that a lot of these upcoming cards though are at quite favourable times for us?
No, I've not. I haven't seen that.
They're doing Costa Vittori at 7 p.m. prelim, 9 p.m. main card.
I like it.
They're doing the same for 267 on Fight Island. That's going to be a 9 p.m. main card start.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And they're also doing Madison Square Garden for 268, and I think that is going to be a main card start of 1 a.m. So we'll be done by like 3 o'clock in the morning.
What a treat! What an absolute treat! And I cannot
crazy
wait
to say.
Yeah, what a treat! I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to break down those fights with you, lovely gentlemen. But until then, we have been the Fight and Talk 2 team. As always, thank you very much, and we will see you next time.